throughout the webinar. You can share your questions, if any, in the Q&A box, which will be taken up in the end. I hope this session will be of value to all the attendees. I now hand over to Mr. UN Marva, Chairman R&M India, for the welcome note.
Dear all, I extend a warm welcome to the participants in this panel discussion on Make in India in Defense, organized by R&M India. R&M is a CA firm operating in Delhi since the last 75 years, spanning 3 generations and now having branches in Gurgaon, Bangalore, Raipur, London, with a branch coming up shortly in Mumbai. Make in India is a great initiative by the government of India for making this country technologically upgraded and to transform India into a global design and manufacturing hub. The Indian defense, having the second largest armed force, is at the cusp of a revolution. The government has identified the defense and aerospace sectors as a focus area for the Atmanirbhar Bharat. With a formidable push, on the establishment of indigenous manufacturing infrastructure, supported by a requisite research and development ecosystem. Before we begin the webinar, I would like to introduce and convey my gratitude to all the panelists who have joined us to share their experience and expertise. Per Samedegard is the President, Defsys Solutions. He's from Denmark, a graduate in engineering, having started his career in the 80s as a licensed aircraft engineer, and has throughout his career been in aerospace and defense industry. Per has worked for regional and commercial airlines in Europe, defense manufacturers, and regional aircraft OEMs, and was the CEO of the Dornier factory in Germany. He came to India 5 years ago as a CEO of an Indian helicopter operator in MRO. He joined Defsys around 3 years ago, just before the pandemic. Welcome, Per.
Thank you very much.
Kunal Bajaj, fondly called by me as Kuna, is CEO of Motherson Group, has more than 25 years of experience in strategy and business intelligence of Indian defense, aerospace and security, markets and telecom. His outputs are based on rigorous analysis, blended with an instinctive feel for the changing Indian defense, security, and aerospace landscape. Welcome, Kunal.
Thank you.
Pratnil Usgaonkar is a director of Elcom Innovations Private Limited, having more than 35 years of varied experience in sales, marketing, and operations. Pratnil is currently working in the defense sector in aerospace, renewable energy, mining, and infrastructure. He is responsible for the organization's business strategy, developing the state-of-the-art defense manufacturing infrastructure, driving the R&D initiatives. Welcome, Pratnil.
Thank you, sir.
We have Prakash Jain. He is a partner with R&M India, based in Bangalore, having an experience of 15 years and is an expert in direct taxes, advising various domestic and multinational companies on tax matters, tax structuring, and compliance. Lastly, I would like to introduce our host for today's session, Raghu Marva. Raghu is the managing partner and CEO of R&M India. He comes with an experience of around 20 years and has an expertise in advising and structuring businesses overseas on behalf of Indian corporates, clients, entry strategy for foreign clients to set up business in India. And I wish him greater success in getting more overseas clients into India in the defense sector. Well, now I'll give it over to Raghu to take over to compare this with the full panel discussion. Well, now I'll give it over.
Thank you so much, Mr. Marwa. And I would like to begin by quoting from the Bhagavad Gita. It says that we are kept from our goal, not by obstacles, but by a clear path to a lesser goal. With that, I hope we will strive towards our goals. And if Make in India in defense is your goal, then friends, you have come to the right place. We have an exciting panel with rich experience and positive energy who have taken out their precious time to share their learnings with you all today. Before we proceed further, I would like to give a shout out to all the Messi fans in the house for an awesome win for Argentina in the Football World Cup last night. I hope the win has inspired all of us to show a similar level of grit and focus in our chosen field. Coming back to defense sector, it's important to put some numbers on the table. After all, we are all numbers people here. Anybody who's seen the Republic Day parade would know that India has a huge defense establishment that costs as much as 8% of the GDP, translating to approximately $47 billion of expenditure per year. Hitherto, a majority of that was going towards imports. And now with Atmanirbhar Bharat, and a huge impetus has been received by the sector to grow domestically, the government has put a target of reaching a $25 billion of defense production by 2025. There is a huge opportunity in this sector, as we said, not only for the large players, but also for the MSME players to participate through Make 2 program by becoming vendors to Government of India establishments like HAL, DRDO, and others who are trying to encourage local indigenization. Defense acquisition management courses are conducted by the Society for Indian Defense Manufacture, which is SIDM. And with that, I'm going to, with that context setting, so to speak, I'm going to come to Per and the first topic, which is defense manufacturing. So Per, how successful, in your view, has the offset policy been in ushering defense production capabilities in India? Please feel free to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly. So over to you, Per.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I believe, and I've been working in the defense industry for many years, and actually also in my home country with offset-related opportunities. And I'm a firm believer that offset is an extremely important development stone for whatever company who's doing offset. It often brings in new technology, new processes, new ways of working. It gives you some hand-holding from some highly professional OEMs. It gives you, it forces you through to push yourself to the limit, to meet targets that are not been met before on the technology side, on the quality side. So from a perspective that offset is really the foundation, and especially for DevSys, we can see it in the numbers that we have had. In 2007, we started as a small company designing simulators on a build-to-spec basis, but the real growth actually came in 2014 and onwards, where we shifted and were focusing also on offset-related activities. And that has definitely for us as a company laid the foundations where we are today with the products we have, because of course offset gives you a basic understanding of a lot of technologies. It gives you a basic understanding that you need to train your people. They get trained to a high level. You need to build your supply chain. You need to manage your supply chain. There's no doubt that develops you as a company, matures you a lot, and actually it's a good foundation, as I said before, for the future, for the Make in India. There's a natural path from offset to Make in India. And I'm personally glad that India and the government has pushed the Make in India so hard. I don't think there's any country in the world giving so many opportunities to the industry in one go as we see here in India. And I don't think there will ever be countries being able to do the same. So for the industry side, we are blessed right now with opportunities. And we see that we have a good, again, using the word foundation, stepping stone to take the next steps. It's been fantastic, and it's very enjoyable ride, I would say.
Thank you so much. So positive words coming from Per on the industry in India. Next question is more on the innovation side. We see a lot of startups. India is seen as a startup factory for the world. What has been your experience on the Innovation for Defense Excellence, IDEX, where they're trying to build an ecosystem around startups in the defense side? So would you like to share something on the IDEX side?
Yeah, so no matter what, all the MAKE programs are definitely giving the opportunities also for small startups. And there's no doubt in India we have extremely many qualified people, motivated people. It's just amazing how it is. They're flexible, they're fast. So the IDEX is giving really an opportunity to the industry to go in and propose something that has not been proposed. Propose your own products, of course, in your own way, and doing that way. Let's say the backside of the Make in India is right now, as I see it, that it should have been, or maybe it should be, supported a little bit about a financing opportunity, maybe from banks or similar things. We know that doing business with the government is not always the easiest thing in the sense of your payment terms. You need to have a lot of cash out. And these development programs, they do cost money. So I think maybe there should have been different schemes around. I know there are schemes, there are support things, and you are winning contracts where you develop things. I think there could be a little bit more and would have helped us a little bit. But definitely, we have so many companies in India, small companies, micro companies that are having good ideas to good technologies. In that sense, India will in the future be a huge exporter of their own technology, I'm sure.
Great. And what about the DAP 2020 and some of the defense production policies even earlier from 2011? Has the Make in India defense sectors, so to speak, received the financial support in your view that it should have from the commercial banks, the venture capitalists, and the other investors? Or is it basically the strategic players who are getting in with joint ventures and putting in the financial support?
See, it's always easier for a big company to cross-finance these projects. That's how the game is. And of course, some companies will be left out. I think actually what would be an advantage for India if we team up more with smaller companies who are having this unique competence, and then actually are more open to work together and put our knowledge together in the pot, and out of get 1 to 1 to be 3 within India, instead of seeking foreign technology that we are doing right now to bridge the gap that the government would like us to bridge, where things has to be invented or developed in India. But of course, we cannot jump 10 or 20 years of development to get the right products in right now. But I think that there is and there should be maybe created some pools where people can more easily find each other in the sense of working together, because I think we can together lift each other. We are definitely not a big company, but we're also not a small company. And we do have, our struggles in managing programs like everybody would have. A program today is often that 60% of the cost of a program, you need to have that as running capital. And that is if you have 10 programs running parallel, that's certainly a very big bite to your cash. So I think there could be different schemes. I'm not a financial guy, I'm a simple engineer. So I think there could be invented schemes that would be a little bit more supportive.
Absolutely. I think, like you said, it's a work in progress. There's a lot yet to be done, and hopefully, some of the financial investors in the investing world will soon recognize the power of the defense sector that is there. Thank you so much, Per. With that, I'm going to switch gears and bring Kunal into the conversation. Hi, Kunal. Manufacturing in aerospace specifically, has brought in a lot of large business houses, the Tatas, Mahindra, L&T, Godrej. We've got Airbus, who recently announced their plans rather to set up their manufacturing of the C295 at Vadodara. How do you see the vendor development ecosystem developing? Right, we've seen some of the large OEM players come into this space. What has been your experience, or what, in your view, is the vendor development ecosystem currently in India?
Raghu, if you have any interest in the sector, it's really an exciting time to be in the sector at the moment. Some of us who've been studying the sector for the last 20 years, we've had some fatigue, and we've been waiting for this moment, right? And this moment has arrived now. Now, let me just kind of break that up for you. What does that mean? Per just very eloquently talked about defense. You talked about the numbers, the large numbers that are over there, the capital outlay, the indigenous list, which of course is driving the market towards developing. You develop a platform, you need to develop a supply chain with it. That supply chain needs to be local. You can't say I'm integrating an aircraft and everything is coming from outside of India. There are 3,700 items that have been banned or prohibited by the Indian government to import from outside of India as per the 3 lists that they've taken out. So that forces you to create a vendor base within the country. And you are seeing more and more companies, more and more big houses, but even MSMEs, right? The government has come up with a lot of incentives for MSMEs to come into this sector, and there are a lot of favorable conditions. Like I was hearing working capital is an issue. Here you're getting favorable loans from the government if you're an MSME. You're also, they have mandated that the payment to an MSME needs to happen within 45 days. There's several measures that have come on the defense side. Now, if you look at the commercial aerospace side, which is even more exciting and far ahead of defense, because companies like the primes like Airbus and Boeing have been procuring for India for a very long time, and they saw the potential in India. We are seeing tremendous opportunity. Just to give you some perspective on the market, everything is measured by traffic flow, passenger traffic flow, right? We are seeing a huge recovery. Let me zoom down to India. If you look into the numbers right now, domestic travel in India has surpassed what it was pre-COVID times in 2019. Global traffic, which is to and fro India, which you're talking about the wide body aircraft, is at pre-COVID level. If you've been reading the paper, you can see that Tatas are on the verge of creating a historic order book for Airbus or Boeing, depending on who they go with, for the narrow body and the wide body, right? And even within the COVID times, Indigo kept the lights on for the European primes. So there is tremendous opportunity. India is poised to be the 3rd largest aviation market in the world. All the factors that we're seeing globally, from energy crisis to labor shortages to inflation, India is benefiting from all of that. And the kind of packages that we are seeing coming in to the country are tremendous, right? Everybody that I speak to in the supply chain today is really happy with what they're seeing, right? Their order books are doubling, tripling, and that's creating a ripple effect, right? When the primes start developing tier 1s start developing tier 2s, tier 2 start developing tier 3, and it goes all the way to the raw material supply, right? And that's creating the ripple effect and creating a fantastic vendor base here. It's a really exciting time for all of us who are in the sector in India.
Super. Thanks so much for that very comprehensive response, Kunal. And I did pick up a couple of interesting things when you talked about air travel and domestic air travel. Do you think flight safety is now going to get the importance that it deserves in terms of more training and better, a lot of our training, of course, internationally was happening. So do you think that flight simulator training and a lot of safety or better safety norms are going to be coming hand in glove with this amazing growth in air travel that we all are seeing post-COVID?
Yeah, it has to, right? I don't think we have a choice. This sector is obsessed with safety. Absolutely. It can be very damaging if anything goes wrong, right? If you see the OEMs, if you see the primes, I call the aircraft manufacturers as the primes. If you look at them, they are investing in pilot training now in country. They understand with the kind of growth we are seeing in the aircrafts being ordered by all the Indian airlines, they will need to, pilots and crew is going to be a bottleneck. So they are investing in country now to look at training pilots, training crews, which is very good to see. DGCA has a lot of emphasis, a lot of audits that are happening with the airlines, where things which are not up to the mark are being brought up. So it is in the airlines' interest to make sure that they have a clean record. It is in the government's interest that they give that comfort to the passengers that everything is safe, and the manufacturers, right? Everything that you do in this industry from a manufacturing perspective needs a certification and a qualification. There is nothing as a manufacturer you can do without qualification. We are obsessed about safety and quality in whatever we build. So I think that culture is being built. It will take time, but we're on the right track.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. And I think just to reiterate what you said, look at how proactively I think we were able to deal with the pressure at Delhi's airports in terms of the travel pressure. I think there was a hue and cry on Twitter, and a lot of people, I see Per smiling over there. I'm not sure whether you missed your flight, but yeah, I think a lot of people were on the receiving end, and hopefully, they were very proactive in trying to, meet some of the passenger needs in terms of getting more X-ray machines and getting more CRPF on the ground. So yeah, I think this is a government which is definitely listening to, the needs of the public.
All I can tell you is that whenever I'm at the airport or whenever I see a high ticket price, I'm all smiles, even though my CFO is beating down my neck saying, "Ooh, that you're paying too much." I'm like, it's great for our industry.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so with that, I'm going to switch gears and ask you, Kunal, about the space program. Because, we all are hidden Elon Musk fans. And the space program in India has obviously been privatized. And there are a bunch of private players who've jumped into the space program. Do you see that as the new frontier in terms of, I've seen the journey that, your company has taken from the automotive to the aviation aerospace business. And now, do you see yourself getting into space program? Is that, with the vendor base expanding, is it that the same vendor base can be used for multiple applications, not only aerospace, but also space?
It's worked for us. For Motherson, it's worked because we had, we were able to use our existing capability in automotive and pivot, looking at the requirements of defense or aerospace or space, as a matter of fact, right? Taking nothing away from Star Trek. Space is the new frontier. Just to give you an example, if you look at what Elon Musk is doing outside of Twitter, if you look at what he's doing with space, right? And there are rumors about him coming up with a new phone to challenge Apple. Now, what is the USP of that phone? You will be able to use that one phone without a SIM anywhere in the world because you are connecting to a satellite that he is putting all over the world, right? And those satellites are going to be in space. So you will be on one global plan and you will be able to roam freely anywhere in the world, whether that's on a ship or whether that's in the US or India or Europe, anywhere, right? The trick is to be able to launch that into space very cheaply. And India gives you that opportunity. Right? Typically, we've been doing it through the government, which is ISRO, And now you've got companies like Skyroot who have come into this and are trying to develop launch vehicles where they will send smaller payloads or microsatellites into space. So it's a really exciting time again. We are working both with ISRO and with Skyroot. So the first rocket that Skyroot launched, we're quite privileged to have our product on it. We have all our products on the launches being done by ISRO. And again, we looked at our capability, what we have resident within Motherson. We said, what do we need to do to make that space ready? So I think there's a lot of opportunities for manufacturers, specifically those who are in automotive or in aerospace and defense, to look at space. It's your one foot in the future, which you shouldn't ignore.
Absolutely. I think you're so dead on. I think maybe I could invite Per. I saw you smiling when we talked about space. Per, would you like to share your thoughts about whether we are going to have space travel becoming a reality in the next 20 years? Per, over to you. Would you like to take a jab at that?
See, having aviation fuel in my blood, I can only say that the next development will be space. There's no doubt about it. This is how it's going, and how fast, how cheap, and whatever, these different people in the world will determine that. But there's definitely, let's say, huge opportunity also for India in the space area. And the natural thing is, actually, we know defense is a high quality required industry, precision and so on. So the defense and aerospace part is a natural stepping stone taking into the space part of it. So I think it's an interesting area, and it will come, yes.
Super. So we've got a very optimistic panel. Over to you, Pradnil. Now we are ready for our third topic of the day, which is MRO, drones, and communications. So, Pradnil, I hope you're ready.
Yeah, absolutely ready. So I think you've chosen the correct topic, as in MRO at least, and drones. Both are extremely important, and drones is a very exciting industry to be in. And talking about MRO, yes, it's easier to buy, but very difficult to maintain. And especially when it comes to defense sector, the platform or the systems or the subsystems that defense buys, they want it to be operational for sometimes over 30 years. And this has been the gap with our buying. A lot of our agreements in past, a lot of our contracts in the past have been full of cracks. And after some amount of time, either the OEMs were unable to maintain them because they had moved on, or there was no contractual obligation on part of the OEM to maintain those platforms. As a result, a lot of our Indian scientists, I would say, from DRDO, from HAL, they've been trying to maintain these systems and subsystems at a very, very slow pace. Even if the OEM agreed to maintain these systems, the whole thing was so complicated that, it would all begin with a failure of an LRU, that is a replaceable unit. And you would have to take a photograph of that and send it to the OEM. Then the OEM would give an estimate, and the Ministry of Defense would approve that estimate. And after that, then you have to cross the international borders, for which custom clearance needs to be done. And then once it lands on the OEM's factory, they're not sitting there waiting for your equipment. They have global queues. So your equipment is in the global queue, and you have to wait for your turn to come. And that doesn't end the story. I mean, it used to be that once your turn comes, they open up the equipment and they realize that the quote that they had given seeing your photographs is not really sufficient. So now the quote has to be 2 times or 3 times higher. So that the quote is sent back, the Ministry of Defense sits over it again, and then you get an approval from Ministry of Defense. And by the time you give that approval, and by the time your turn comes back again for repairs, it could be more than a year or 2. So this was the state of affairs over all these years. Although we've been, dealing with the Russians and the US and the Israelis, I mean, if you visit HAL, you will realize that they have warehouse full of equipment which they don't know how to repair, and they're trying to find out what the whole thing is. So if you look at it for last 3 to 4 years, Government of India, the Ministry of Defense has made the right moves. Today, the DAP 2020 talks about, first thing they talk about indigenization. So 87% of the tenders which come up, they ask for indigenization, that you have to make here in India without having a plan to make it here in India. And a lot of RFPs, they say that it's not sufficient to submit a plan, but when you come for trials, make sure that 40% or 50% of indigenous content is already there in your equipment which you got it for trials. It's quite a pain area for the Indian manufacturers, but yes, that's the way a lot of RFPs say. So having said this, what they're doing is now at the RFI stage itself, for all equipment which cannot be made in India immediately, but over a period of time they can be indigenized. They are in your RFI itself. When you answer the RFI, you need to state that the OEM has to give a commitment that they would set up an MRO facility here in India. So that's one big step, that they're making the vendors, and the MRO facility has to be with an Indian vendor, either as joint venture or Indian vendor does it on its own, from a maintenance, MTOT as it called, maintenance technology transfer. So this is the right move over last 4 years that the government has taken. They're making the vendors, they're making the foreign OEMs think at the time of selling that how you're going to maintain it for next 25 to 30 years. A lot of this equipment is very, very expensive, and which is called the life cycle support. The life cycle support is far, far more expensive than just buying the equipment itself. So this, I feel, is the right move from the Ministry of Defense. This is going to, basically increase the overall life of the product also. I mean, many times what happens is that after a lot of effort of getting anything repaired, Ministry of Defense will scrap that equipment or buy a new one. So today it will also increase the life support, basically upgrade the life. But not only that, a lot of technology assimilation would also happen. Somebody said on the panel that a lot of ecosystem gets developed. Now you can't repair it on your own, so a lot of ecosystem is getting developed. So we've seen two, of course, ELCOM as a group, to talk a little bit about what we have done is that we have an MRO, a success story on MRO for drones, that is the UAV. And we've begun in a small way of field service. Now we have a full-fledged MRO at Bhiwadi, where we are not only, doing minor repairs, but we're doing engine repairs, we're doing structural repairs. And a lot of these LRUs were just going back to Israel. And so this is a success story as far as our own group is concerned. And I must say the OEM has taken a lot of interest, and they made sure that we build this MRO center, which is state of the art. In fact, they say it's even better than what it is in Israel. So, I mean, that's, I think, and this will also be used for MRO exports. So, a lot of our MRO for repair is now going to Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia for repairs. But with this center over here, we would be repairing UAVs from this part of the world. And that's what the dream is all about. So it is exciting. MRO, there are a lot of right noises. As far as the international players are concerned, Safran, who's one of the major global international players, has already tied up with HAL in Goa to do engine repairs. Thales, in fact, is looking for major expansion in aviation repairs, especially in the commercial airline sector. So, I mean, these are the two burning examples where a lot of OEMs are looking inside to set up, and they're looking for partners, they're looking for private partners or PSUs to set up the MRO centers. And I think it will go a long way. MRO business would go a long way, whether it is in the field of UAVs, helicopters, or even commercial airlines. I mean, that's very, very exciting to know. And I think next 4 years, 5 years, you will see, because at the tender stage, if you're made to think of how to set up an MRO, I'm sure going forward, a lot of our purchases will be secured for next 25 to 30 years. That's what I feel.
That's an amazing insight, Pradnil. I think what you said is extremely crucial and bodes very well for the overall industry, I would say. And you know, you've given some great insights in terms of technical as well as business examples. I'm wondering, Per, would you like to come in on the MRO? I mean, I think there has been some experience that you also, or your group also has on that side. Would you like to share your views on, you know, what Pradnil just said? I think it was, a lot of it was technical, so maybe you can break it down to the audience, but over to you, Per.
So I fully agree, first of all. And there's no doubt a product with an end user is measured on its operational time, uptime. And if it's standing in a corner somewhere, not being operational because there's an LRU, line replaceable unit, not working, whatever, missing part, then it's not operational. And then it's not a success for the operator. So there's no doubt that India, and I'm glad that they are going that direction, need to rethink the operational time of a product as what they want, because that's why they buy the product. It needs to be operating, it needs to fly, it needs to drive, it needs to whatever. That's what they are buying it for. They don't buy it to be in a garage or in a hangar somewhere. So that is where also I've seen that there has been change in the way of thinking from the government, in the sense of how to ensure that in the future there's a road to go still, but definitely the thoughts are there, and they of course need to be put in initially when you define what you want and what you need and your requirements. You also need to define your operational uptime. How do you want to operate? Where do you want to operate? And how do you want it to maintain? And that is definitely a very important thing for success of a product. So yes, it will come, and it's something that is open for a lot of people. The only thing we need to ensure is that the right quality is put into that. And that is where people need to be very careful what they do. They need to follow the manuals, follow the books, use the right parts, and so on and so forth. It's again, from an industrial perspective, the only way of ensuring that the companies can be behind what they've done of work to ensure that the operator at the end, because it's his success that it will be your success.
Thank you so much, Per. That's very profound words. With that, I'm going to go to my next question to Pradnil. Pradnil, on the Drone Rules 2021 and the Digital Sky program, which have been announced by the government, do you think that India can become a global drone hub by 2030, which is the declared goal? Do you think, I mean, you talked about your own personal success story at Elcom Group with drones, but do you think that India has the potential to become a global drone hub, and the regulatory environment with these couple of rules which have been now put in the public domain, is that creating the right enabling ecosystem to kind of build that? Absolutely,
Raghu, 100%. You know, India can become a global hub. And that's what Jyotiraditya Scindia said, that he wants India to become a global hub for drones by 2030. And again, here I would say that the policies that the government is framing, and especially the new drone policy is very, very liberalized. It's very exciting, because first time in India, Government of India has come out with a policy which is based on trust and self-certification, that they trust you, and then you need to self-certify and be responsible for that self-certification. Now, this is something which is opened the skies up. You know, for example, what they've done is that they've declared yellow zone, green zone and red zone as far as drone flying is concerned. And you'll be surprised that policy stipulates 90% of the Indian's airspace as green zone. Okay, so that's where the development of drones will come in, because earlier almost about say 72 forms had to be filled. Then a lot of license fees had to be given. These 72 forms have come down to now, I think, merely 2 or 3 forms. License fees have become almost nil. So any innovator, as far as in the drone industry is concerned today, is completely encouraged. And a lot of state governments are coming out with this, drone policies. For example, Karnataka, I think Karnataka is driving the drone revolution in India, I would say. Of course, Karnataka definitely has a plus point because of the legacy Bharat Electronics and HAL and BDL sitting over there. There is a lot of infrastructure which is already developed in the state of Karnataka. But as far as drone is concerned, a city like Bangalore has multiple green zones. Where you look at city like Delhi and Mumbai, there are no green zones at all. So you can imagine how fast a state of Karnataka is taking advantage of this drone policy. So a lot of changes are happening, and followed by this, Government of India in September 2021 announced PLI scheme for drones. That is production-linked incentives, that anybody who wants to manufacture drones in India would get as much as 20% incentives on the value addition. And that's a great amount. I mean, you're a chartered accountant, at 20% incentives many times boils down to 8 to 10% of your top line. So if you're getting 8 to 10% of your top line as incentives, I mean, a lot of business houses don't earn profit before tax as 8 to 10% in defense industry. So, that's, I think, a great step towards, encouraging the drone industry, drone manufacturers. So the PLI scheme, they've already awarded 23 beneficiaries so that scheme was announced in September 2021, and by May 2022, which is, hardly 7 or 8 months, they've announced about 23, they were awarded 23 PLI participants with this scheme. So there are a lot of good players, there are a lot of medium range players, and there are a lot of startups who are a part of this, because the minimum criteria for applying to this scheme was about just 2 crores of turnover. So a lot of people are participating, a lot of people have been awarded. I think this will take the drone industry to greater heights, I would say. There is another aspect of drones here in India. Drones is not just a hardware market, but it's a huge software market. The application areas, a drone has right from the drones can be used for, your wedding receptions to, making border surveillance, so the drone has so much of application. I mean, they can be simply used to, make films for your reception at your wedding, but they can also be used at the LAC and the borders. Okay. So, and there is a lot of application in drones in agri sector. So India is an agricultural country. In fact, the roads, Honorable Minister Nitin Gadkari has already announced that he would like to see the progress of roads through drone, surveillance. So apparently the software industry for drones in India is expected to be $21 billion. So there is going to be huge writing of softwares and applications written for the drone industry. So I think government has seen all these things, and government is going in the right direction. The pace at which it is going, I think within a year or two, you will see a lot of drone players here in India, something which had not happened earlier, and time won't be very far when you order something on, Amazon, and it's delivered to your house with a drone. So yeah, I'm sure India is progressing towards that.
So let me get Kunal in on this question. Kunal, what do you think about the drone policy? Do you think we can be a drone hub? Can we beat some of the leading tech players in the world? Israel was mentioned, and other countries. What is your view?
I'd see drones has so many different applications, right? There are applications in defense, there are applications in your civil life. We talked about Amazon delivery to Predator drones. So it's such a vast field. It's such a vast area of application. I think what will evolve faster is the defense side, because that is something that the government will really look at. The protection of our borders, intelligence, reconnaissance. That is a priority. I think that's something first the government will really look at getting right, and I completely agree with the software part of it, because it will be offered as a service. I think once they get that right, they will also start looking on the civilian side. Logistics is a huge area, and this is reality, right? Today there are companies where I've seen some fantastic use cases, especially during COVID, where medicines have been delivered on drones. You have flight paths that have been short. I think that is what the government needs to look at. How does it interfere with day-to-day life, especially when you're looking at civilian applications, right? In a secure environment, in a controlled environment, drones work very well. But when you start interacting with with other platforms like helicopters, as a matter of fact, when the air traffic control gets involved, right, and you give free access, how do you create policy? So I think it's still far away, but we've made a lot of progress in this. I think we will look at it use case by use case. It's not only new for India, it's new for the world. But the beauty about the drone, from an India perspective, why I think it will move faster than the world is our ability to manufacture them cheap. Right now, if you look at the the financials of operating or building a drone enterprise, it's the cost of the drone, because the numbers are not very supportive. Once we are able to manufacture that at scale, and India will give you that advantage, right? I think India will really take over. So we've got to find enough use cases, work in tandem with the government to ease the policies, and then really create that scale to be able to manufacture it cost effectively. The more we do that, the more we will adopt and adapt to drones.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Kunal. Pradnil, we're going to come to your last question. Unfortunately, we are tight on time. Is on, we all saw the new destroyer INS Mormugao, which was commissioned yesterday by Raksha Mantri. Do you think that we're going to see more examples of such indigenous defense capability coming in? And I know your company and your group has been involved with ship communication and communications per se. What is your, we've been talking about aerospace and some of the other defense applications, but I didn't want to leave out the Navy and the shipping industry. That's a huge opportunity as well. So what is your view on the shipping communication specifically, where your group has a good hold?
Yeah, so again, a very relevant question, Raghu, is that Indian Navy has always been in forefront as far as the indigenization is concerned. If you look at all the three armed forces, the maximum indigenization that has happened is in the Indian Navy, and there are examples which is known to everybody, that we have our own aircraft carrier, designed and manufactured in Cochin shipyard. We have submarines, nuclear submarines, which are manufactured by DMDE, and so Navy has been in forefront as far as indigenization is concerned. The communication platforms on the Navy, there are many communication platforms, and I don't want to be specific here, but a lot of these communication platforms we are involved in designing, and I see, a lot of scope as far as the indigenous programs of the Indian Navy and basically sea transport is concerned. There is no doubt that Mazagon docks and our shipyards in the east are doing very, very well, and a lot of Indian players are involved on a day-to-day basis there, and not only the foreign OEMs, but the Indian indigenization programs are on full form as far as the Indian Navy is concerned. And they're only getting impetus because of the new policies, but they've been trying on their own even before all these indigenization policies came up, So I think all credit to the Indian Navy there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Pradnil. With that, we're going to shift to our last speaker of the day. Hi, Prakash. I'm sorry for being running late, but yeah, we're going to shift to tax and regulatory. So Prakash, with defense item exports, I think some of the earlier speakers talked about the importance of export sector around defense. With defense item exports likely to cross $2 billion in 2023, are there any tax incentives? What is the FDI story around this sector? Over to you, Prakash.
Thank you, Raghu sir. So the first mantra, as already told by everyone, it is make in India and make for the world. So the defense sector is following that policy. So the FDI policy has been liberalized. Like the FDI has been increased from 49% to 74% for the automatic route and 100% for the government route. So there is a liberalization in the foreign direct policy. The main intention is to allow the foreign players to get into the Indian market, to strengthen the domestic manufacturing. So if they enter the Indian market, then we'll have more domestic manufacturing. Now coming to tax incentives, see, we have this section 80JJAA, which is for the benefit of employing additional workmen. This 80JJAA was initially introduced in 1998, and this was for the blue-collared employees. But now this has been liberalized. In Finance Act 2016, it has been liberalized, and anybody can claim the benefit of 80JJAA, subject that there are certain conditions. One condition is he should be subject to tax audit. Then there should be a person who has been employed in the organization, and he should have been employed for 240 days, at least for 240 days in a previous financial year. The emoluments or the salary which is being paid to that employee should be less than or equal to 25,000. And the other condition is he should be have the increase in the effect of increasing the number of employees as compared to the previous year. So these are some of the conditions, and there is no sunset clause for this 80JJAA as of now. So this is a deduction which will be allowed continuously. So there is no sunset clause for this. Then coming to the section 115 BAB, where they have liberalized the tax rate for the manufacturing companies. So if you are setting up a unit anytime between October 2019 to 31st March 2024, manufacturing anything or article, there will be a concessional tax rate of 15%. And one good thing to note here is, once you opt for this 115 BAB, you will not get any other deduction. But they have told you will get a deduction of 80JJAA. So the main motto of the government is to generate employment, so that they get the 80JJAA deduction also, and they also get a concessional tax rate. So these are some of the tax incentives.
That's interesting. So at 15% tax rate, I think that's one of the lowest in the world, if I'm not mistaken. And you get an incentive for job creation. So
job creation
is really going out on a limb to try and help job creation in this country. I think the other thing that Pradnil talked about already was regarding the drone and drone component sector and the PLI scheme. What are your thoughts, Prakash sir, about the PLI scheme? Obviously, you're sitting in Bangalore, which was earlier talked about as the startup hub for India. So do you think that the PLI scheme is going to pan out well?
Yeah, obviously. See, this scheme will open many verticals for the drone sectors. That will open many verticals. Then it will also encourage government for considering the startups, because as Pradnil already told, the turnover criteria is very less. It is 2 crores for the startups. So that will generate more startups to come into these industries. And the recent thing, they have told that drone manufacturing will attract around 5,000 crores of investments in the next 3 years, and also will have the generation of employment of around 10,000 direct jobs over the next 3 years. Then the annual turnover of the drone manufacturing industry has also been grown up from 60 crores to 900 crores. That is the projections. They are saying currently in financial year 2021, the turnover of the drone manufacturing industry was 60 crores, but they are expecting it to grow to the turnover of 900 crores. So obviously we can see all these things, and they have allocated around 120 crores for the next 3 financial years for the PLI incentive schemes. So as Pradnil already told, that there should be at least 20% of the value additions. If there's a 20% of the value additions, there is a production linked incentives which will be generated to the drone manufacturing companies. So these are just a few takeovers.
Super. This sounds all very exciting, and I'm going to end with the last question. We've got a couple of questions in the Q&A box which we're going to go to next. So Prakash sir, in your view, how easy is tax administration from a user perspective? I think all the panelists here are, engineers or business owners or business CEOs, and they all want to hear the tax experts' view on how easy it is from a user perspective. So what is your assessment being a tax man on this panel? How easy has government made it for the user?
See, generally government will come with lot of liberalization. One good thing is we should follow the compliances. For taking this 80JJAA only, these criteria we should fulfill, because this is a continuing deduction, and we should not default in those conditions which has been prescribed, because of the late we have seen a lot of scrutinies which has been happening for claiming 80JJAA. So I think we should keep it simple. We should claim only for the employees who are eligible to claim this deduction, and we should also have our things compliant with all the angles, so that tomorrow if there is any tax scrutiny or anything, we should be compliant with all the laws, because otherwise that will not be a booster for the companies. There will be a pitfall once there is a scrutiny, once there is a search or seizure, that they will have a lot of implications. So we should be go neat, go clean. That should be the mantra.
Absolutely. I think that you've ended it in a very good note. Go neat, go clean. So with that, we are going to go to the question answers. The first question is, I think, directed to Kunal. I'm just going to read it out for the benefit of everybody. It says, like Mr. Raghu spoke about safety regulations, and Kunal sir responded with air carriers putting in efforts to ensure safety. But should DGCA do more than just following in the footsteps of FAA? Kunal, would you like to take a jab at this?
See, I'm no airline guy, right? I'm also a passenger, just like you are a user, and I would want our carriers to be as safe, and the government to ensure that. There is always more that you can do, right? I mean, aviation for us and the kind of growth we've seen is very recent. The US is the largest market. If we are learning from the FAA, it's a good thing, right? I think we need to at least come up to their level and then see how we can further improve ourselves, right? But we've got to have a benchmark, something we learn from. And it's not only that the government is looking at other governments and other regulatory bodies to learn from. We're even learning from the aircraft manufacturers who have experience. We're learning from the carriers who have tied up, right? So if you look at Tata, that's tied up with Singapore Airlines on Vistara, and now they're looking to do the same thing on Air India. They bring a lot of best practices from other countries and places that they're operating. Airlines, international airlines that are flying into India, like Lufthansa and British Airways and others, have made it. They have told the government that you need to be at a certain level of safety for us to be able to fly our aircrafts into the country, including the US airlines, right? So these are all things that improve us, right? It's a journey. You have to have milestones along that journey, and we have to learn. And that's how we will continuously improve. No different to how we do this in manufacturing, right? We call it GIMBA. At the point, you need to improve yourself.
That's nice. That's nice. Okay, so next we're going to go to a question on the space sector. Radnil, maybe you could take a jab at this. With space sector being privatized across the globe, do you think space junk will become another problem that Earthians will have to tackle in the near future? Obviously, the buzzword today is sustainability. So, Pradnil, what is your view on space junk?
Yeah, so I'm 100% sure, Raghu, that it will become a problem going forward. Maybe not our generation, but the next generation afterwards. Space junk itself is a problem today, but it might become a huge problem going forward. So hope our scientists and our people who are initiating all these space programs think of it in advance. And it's a good question from that point of view. Yes.
Thank you so much. So, Per, I'm going to direct the next question to you, and this is on the Russia-Ukraine crisis. Anmol Bansal has written saying, given the Russian-Ukraine crisis, how does the role of Russia changes when it comes to Russia being one of the most important strategic defense partners to India. It also makes us rethink our relations with Russia as China is trading closer with Russians. Geopolitics, it's a very interesting sphere. What is your take on this?
So I try to stay out of politics, first of all. But there's no doubt, if you look at the situation, even in Europe right now, we are having the situation that we will need to be independent in the future. And I think the Ukrainian-Russian war has shown that even in Europe, that on the energy supply, on every area, we need to be independent. But that is also, if you look back, what is going on already in India, in the Make in India. See, India is already trying to make themselves independent of the Russian OEMs. It is slowly coming. It's been started years ago. Now the Make in India is just accelerating this much more. And basically, well, what Kunal said, there's so many banned product that cannot be imported, that needs to be manufactured here, and that will then over time solve the situation.
Thanks.
Raghu, if I may add here, if you give China option between Russia and US, they would choose US because their trade with US is far greater than their trade with Russia. So I don't think, the Chinese are going to choose Russians when it comes to, if given a choice. One doesn't know how geopolitics spans out and who intervenes in whose affairs. But purely from trade perspective, I think that trade with US is far, far exceeding the trade with Russia.
So you don't think the Russian bear hugging the Chinese panda is going to be a reality anytime soon? Okay, thanks.
But Raghu, I feel it's irrelevant, right? Especially as us people who are looking at business. It's taken the world to understand this, and I think India has gone about it very, very maturely. I think that's the difference between today's India. We will do what is right for India at the end of the day, right? So, all the panelists here agree, right? What is right for India is make in India. What is right for India is, let's make not only for ourselves, but let's make for the world. Everything else to me is irrelevant. It doesn't matter what's happening. We need to protect ourselves. We need to be self-sufficient. We need to only depend on ourselves. What we say in Madison, BY. Buy yourself, better yourself. That's the mantra we need to follow.
Wonderful.
Absolutely. I completely agree, Kunal, with you. That's the only solution that we have going forward. And we can do it. I'm sure India can do it.
We are doing it. The kind of capability that we are seeing. And this is European and American manufacturers who traditionally have only relied on their home markets. When they're coming to India today, to see the capability that's available, the capacity that's available, the hunger that is available, the investment appetite that is available, they're blown away. They want to do more. They want to do more in India. So
and overall, the potential that is available in India.
Absolutely. I'm very excited. I hope all of you are.
Definitely. We all very charged up after this amazing panel. We're going to take this one last question, which I think Prakash sir can take. Jagruti has asked about what arena of startup in defense can get the tax benefit. Very quickly, Prakash sir, would you like to take a jab at that?
Yeah. See, for 115 BAB, the company should be engaged in the business of manufacture of article or thing, or in the research, if you are doing some research in that area. And if you come to 80 ISC, there it says the startup should be working towards the innovation, improvement of the products or services, processes that have the potentials to generate more employment. So these are the areas like where we can work. In the drone sector also, there may be airframes, then there may be other cameras, sensors. There are a lot of activities, a lot of equipments where we can engage and we can get the tax benefits.
Thank you so much for that. To end, I would like to thank again all our esteemed panelists who have taken out their time and enthralled us with their views. I love the acronyms, the bye-bye, the neat and clean. I think we all are going back with very good buzzwords. And I would like to end by quoting Dolly Parton, who's the famous American singer, who put it beautifully by saying, "The way I see it if you want the rainbow, you got to put up with the rain. So this, I think, friends, summarizes our understanding of the Make in India, which inevitably will throw up its challenges, but provides a platform for tremendous growth and an avenue for service to the nation. I think that is an aspect which has come out very clearly from our panelists, that this is something which definitely brings in the patriotic fervor. And with that, I would like to thank everybody for their participation. All the best. Thanks, Pradnil, Kunal, Mr. Marwa, Pratichi, for helping put this together, and Prakash. All the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.